When you think of a serial killer, you likely imagine someone sinister, someone whose very appearance raises alarms. But Dorothea Puente was the opposite. She was an elderly woman, dressed modestly, always with a warm smile. To the outside world, she seemed like a caring landlady, offering shelter to those in need. But behind the doors of her boarding house in Sacramento, California, lay a chilling secret, a garden filled with her victims. Dorothea Helen Gray was born on January 9, 1929, in Redlands, California. Her early life was riddled with tragedy. Orphaned at a young age, she spent her childhood in orphanages, where she learned to manipulate to survive. These formative years shaped the cunning and deceptive personality that would later define her. As an adult, Dorothea transformed herself repeatedly. She spun elaborate lies about her background, claiming to be the widow of a war hero, a nurse, or a college graduate. None of it was true. Before opening her infamous boarding house, Dorothea had a long history of crime. In 1960, she was arrested for running a brothel in Sacramento. Over the years, she was involved in check fraud, theft, and petty scams, which led to multiple short prison sentences. Despite her criminal record, her harmless appearance often earned her leniency from judges. In 1978, after her release from prison, Dorothea opened a boarding house at 1426 F Street. It was advertised as a haven for society's forgotten, elderly individuals, people with disabilities, and the homeless. But this supposed sanctuary was, in reality, a hunting ground. Dorothea's method was as calculated as it was chilling. Her victims were the vulnerable and the forgotten, people who wouldn't be missed. Here's how she operated. She sought out tenants with no close family or friends to check on them. Dorothea offered affordable lodging, meals, and companionship, fostering an image of a benevolent caregiver. Once her tenants trusted her, she falsified documents to divert their Social Security or disability checks to her own accounts. When a tenant was no longer useful, Dorothea would kill them, usually with an overdose of sedatives mixed into their food or drink. After killing her victims, Dorothea buried their bodies in her backyard. What made Dorothea so dangerous was her unassuming appearance. Neighbors and even authorities saw her as a kind, elderly woman, never suspecting the horrors taking place inside her home. Between 1982 and 1988, several residents of Dorothea's boarding house vanished. Each time she had an explanation. Her excuses worked for years, but neighbors began to notice inconsistencies. The pungent odor coming from her backyard was hard to ignore, and her behavior became increasingly suspicious. The case finally broke in November 1988, when Alvaro Montoya, a mentally disabled tenant under Dorothea's care, went missing. His social worker, concerned about his welfare, contacted the police. When officers visited the boarding house, they found disturbed patches of soil in the backyard. With a warrant in hand, they began digging. What they uncovered was beyond comprehension. On the first day of excavation, police unearthed a human body. Dorothea watched the scene unfold with eerie composure. As the days went on, more bodies were discovered, each one revealing another layer of her horrific crimes. In total, 7 bodies were exhumed from Dorothea's backyard. These included 1. Leona Carpenter, 78 years old, one of Dorothea's earliest victims, whose health made her an easy target. 2. Dorothy Miller, 64 years old, found with high levels of sedatives in her system. 3. Benjamin Fink, 55 years old, killed shortly after receiving a benefits check. 4. Betty Palmer, 78 years old, found decapitated, her head missing entirely. 5. James Gallup, 62 years old, a mentally ill tenant who vanished under Dorothea's care. 6. Vera Faye Martin, 64 years old. Another victim buried without a trace of her family ever being notified. 7. Alvaro Montoya, 51 years old. The disappearance that finally led to her arrest. Investigators believed these 7 victims were just the tip of the iceberg. Authorities suspected Dorothea had killed many others during her time as a landlady. As police continued their investigation, Dorothea asked for permission to leave the property, claiming she needed to clear her mind. The officers, deceived by her frail and grandmotherly demeanor, allowed her to leave. She took the opportunity to flee. Dorothea traveled to Los Angeles, where she attempted to blend in. But her face was already plastered across newspapers and TV screens. A man in a bar recognized her and called the police. Dorothea was arrested shortly thereafter without resistance. Dorothea Puente's trial began in 1990 and would stretch on for years. The prosecution's task was monumental. They needed to prove that these deaths were deliberate, premeditated murders motivated by greed. The evidence was damning. Dorothea's defense portrayed her as a kind-hearted woman whose tenants died of natural causes. But the jury saw through her lies. In 1993, she was convicted of 9 murders and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Dorothea Puente died in prison on March 27, 2011, at the age of 82. She never admitted to her crimes, carrying her secrets to the grave. Today, her house at 1426 F Street still stands. Though renovated, it remains a grim tourist attraction, drawing true crime enthusiasts who seek to understand the evil that once resided there. The story of Dorothea Puente is a chilling reminder that appearances can deceive. Evil doesn't always come in an intimidating form. Sometimes it wears the face of a kindly grandmother, offering a warm meal and a helping hand. But beneath the surface lies a darker truth, a predator hiding in plain sight.